Good afternoon. This is Laurence Gore, and we're coming to you on legal issues on yacht and ship charters. With me is my office producer, assistant, and about everything else around the office. She does very, very well, Amelia Bach. And she has quite a background also in ship and boat charters, especially in the Mediterranean. So she's going to talk somewhat on that as well. So we
Perfect. Awesome, Larry. I appreciate you jumping on here. I appreciate Amelia as well. For anybody who doesn't know, my name is Stephen Gould over at Travel Advisor Resource Center. And the reason we brought Laurence in is because honestly, we've been seeing that a lot of people have really been moving their businesses right now into more of the yacht charter and the ship charter market. So we really felt like right now was the perfect time to truly dive in and focus on that kind of conversation. But the problem that comes up with a lot of yacht charters and ship charters is that the question arises, is there enough legal protection when it comes down to the actual contract process and everything? So that is where Laurence and his entire staff, he runs Laurence D, Gore and Associates down in Fort Lauderdale. He's got a little bit here to kind of talk to you guys about. So go ahead, Laurence, and kick it off.
All right. As I mentioned, this is Amelia Bach also with me. She's our assistant and basically office producer of all things that are relevant. She was also had a lot of experience in yacht charters, especially in the Mediterranean. And so she's going to talk about a few subjects there. Amelia is also from Europe. She was from Italy, but she's been here for 19 years, right?
Yes.
And working in that area. So if we can go on to the first slide.
Yes, here we go.
All right. When it comes to yacht charters, there are several different legal issues to be aware of to ensure a smooth and compliant experience. Here are some of the common legal concerns. First of all, of course, the charter agreement. The contractual obligations. A charter agreement is essential. It outlines the terms such as the duration of the charter, payment, insurance, responsibilities of both the crew and the charter, and a lack of a clear contract can lead to many disputes. I had a situation, for instance, on a charter of a vessel on European rivers, and the charter agreement was very, very poor. So we had to rework that for them. Fortunately, they accepted our rework, but it's very, very important, if you possibly can, consult with an attorney, someone to look over the proposed contract. Jurisdiction is one of those areas also that's important. The agreement should specify which country's laws govern any disputes. This is important as laws related and maritime issues can differ greatly from one country to another. Generally, we don't want to know about the licenses and certifications. The skipper qualifications, for instance. The skipper or captain must have the necessary qualifications to operate a yacht. Requirements vary by region, but generally the captain must have a recognized maritime license. Then the registration of the yacht. The yacht must be properly registered with the flag state, the country under whose laws it is registered. There could be legal implications if it's not. Then we have an insurance scenario. You want to make sure that your agency, your tour company, et cetera, is covered by their liability and what type of liability insurance they have. Both the yacht owner and the charter should ensure the yacht is covered by liability insurance. That covers accidents or damages caused to third parties while on the water. Now, hull and property insurance is also very important. Charters might want to check if the yacht is insured for physical damage, both during and after the charter period, and insurance for the crew. If there is a crew, insurance should cover crew members in case of injury or other incidents.
And Laurence, I know when you mentioned insurance for liability insurance and all that, I assume that's liability insurance for the yacht charter itself. I know you said also the charter, as travel advisors, does our E&O insurance cover that kind of thing, or is there an additional insurance we should be looking into?
No, they would want insurance to make sure the trip is performed properly also. The same type of insurance that the travel agent may wish to have to cover themselves. But in this event, like in most of these group contracts, you want to make sure that the provider covers any incident that the the client may come back against the travel agent with. We had an incident I'll mention quickly with the yacht charter during the European River cruise, and the captain showed up a day late and drunk. Now the people said, "What are we going to do?" And the corporation, which was the tour company employed by the travel agency, said, "Well, I guess we'll put them up in a hotel." They actually had no obligation to do this. But that's one of those things you want to make sure in the charter agreement is covered, that type of liability insurance. And so they're paid back, even if you have to put these other conditions, such as putting the clients up in a hotel.
That makes sense. And going back to the charter agreement portion really quickly, I know you were talking about jurisdiction specifically. When we're talking about jurisdiction, it said that you got to know kind of which country's laws govern and just govern the rules and disputes and all that kind of stuff. Do travel advisors want that in the US, or does it usually come from the charter company wherever they're headquartered?
It generally tends to come from the charter company, if it's even in there. We've seen charter agreements where there's no jurisdiction pointed out. We would then request that it comes from the US. If it's at all possible, it's best to be in the US. And then also the law that's applied would be US law, or the law of the state in which the tour company or travel agency is in. Because then we're dealing with unfamiliar laws, unfamiliar judicial systems, and they may favor the actual yacht owner themselves.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Now, we want to be sure about safety regulations also, and a compliance with safety standards. The yacht has to comply with safety regulations such as carrying life jackets, fire extinguishers, distress signals, and other necessary equipment. The captain's responsible for ensuring that all safety measures are in place, and this should also be part of your contract. Safety briefing. The charter should be provided with a safety briefing before departure, which may be legally required under the jurisdiction in which the yacht is sailing. And of course, we look at environmental laws and waste disposal. Many countries or regions have strict laws about waste disposal in the ocean, including sewage and trash. Yacht charters must follow these rules, as fines can be imposed for the violations, and actually the voyages can be stopped en route.
That makes sense. And I know we see a lot of that, especially in the ocean liners and all that, as far as environmental laws and sustainability and everything. Regarding the compliance of safety standards, the average travel advisor probably doesn't know what's needed on board, whether it's life jackets, all that stuff. Is there a list or something like that that they could get, or is there somebody that they should talk to at the charter company to say, hey, what do you guys have on board for safety standards, or should it just be in the contract?
They really should provide a list, and that's one of the requests before
Sign the contract.
right before signing the contract, to show what safety features are on the yacht. And when Amelia speaks in a few moments too, she's going to tell you about one of those situations where they really provided much of nothing, and certainly the pictures didn't match the reality. Customs and immigration, crossing borders. If you're chartering a yacht in international waters or traveling across borders, you need to comply with customs and immigration rules, such as reporting to port authorities when entering or leaving the country. Also remember that the yacht is under the jurisdiction of the flag state that they fly, which means that's normally what law is going to apply. But if they're violating some international standards, maritime standards, the yacht can be stopped virtually by any country's coast guard, boarded, and what they call a captain of the port order can be imposed, making the yacht return to the port where it originated, and the charter is terminated. Now, visas and permits, depending on your nationality and the locations you're traveling to, visas and specific permits may be required. Some countries may also require charterers to obtain a cruising permit for specific reasons. So you need to also know in your charter agreement where, when and where you may need to provide specific visa information for your clients. We had an incident on a larger vessel that they thought they were fine for Brazil, and it turned out that they really weren't. The passengers couldn't even get off, and they had to skip the port entirely.
Oh,
Okay, alcohol. Pardon, go ahead, Stephen.
No, I was going to say, as far as the kind of crossing borders and all that stuff, so you're talking about where it's internationally flagged or where they're departing from and all that kind of stuff. For a yacht charter that's in one area, like we're talking a BVI charter, or we're maybe talking a Croatian yacht charter or something like that. If there is international crossing of boundaries where they're maybe doing like Croatia, but they're also going into maybe Montenegro, or they're going into a different area, like a different country, maybe it's Croatia down to Greece or something like that, which I assume they have to adhere to the local laws based on whether it's Greece or Croatia or whatever, even if the ship is flagged elsewhere.
Yes.
Yes, under International Maritime Organization and general law of the sea, 12 miles out is where the jurisdiction of that particular nation will extend to. So, such as if you're off a Greek island, you're 12 miles off, then Greece comes in to provide. They can make arrests, they can do whatever they want. So you want to make sure you're conforming to their agreements. Alcohol and drugs can also be specific problem. Laws about alcohol consumption on board can vary. In some places, there may be strict regulations about alcohol limits, but the skipper or public intoxication could result in fines or arrest. And as I said, that's the issue we had on a river charter at that point. Drug use, the use of illegal substances is prohibited on yachts, such as it is on land, and violating drug laws in international waters can also result in serious consequences. So just because you think you're on the yacht and you're offshore somewhere does not mean that the various laws of the state in which you may be cruising apply. Especially, you're not going to light up your marijuana cigarette if you're within their 12 miles and it's violating the law of that country. Now, we also have crew.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Stephen.
No, I was going to say, I also know as far as the alcohol side, just from past experiences, I know when you're on charters, there's also, I believe each marina also has kind of dictation of what is allowed on board and kind of what the vessel is allowed to have as far as like people bringing on their own alcohol and all that kind of stuff too.
Yes. If they're enforced, hopefully, it's very interesting because we just got off a cruise where they're no longer actually looking at your luggage whatsoever. And that used to be an issue. And we knew some people that would take their mouthwash bottles and fill them with liquor instead and bring them on that way. But lately, they really weren't checking that. However, if you're on a smaller vessel,
Nobody
they probably,
checking.
she's very experienced in that. Nobody does generally check.
In a smaller charter yacht, they're not coming and check what kind of amount of alcohol you're bringing in. There's no way they can do that. Or in a big.
Amelia, when you're talking smaller, are you talking something like 4 couples, or are you talking something as large as like 20 cabins, or what are you talking when you say small yacht?
I'm talking about a yacht with 5 cabins for 10 people. Smaller yacht cruises, 10 people, 15 people the most, with the 5, 6 cabins. That's what I'm talking about, smaller ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also on the crew employment rights, if you're hiring the crew for your charter, meaning you're a bareboat charter, which is not the normal scenario, but some people want to do that. The terms of the employment, salary, working hours, rest periods, etc., do need to comply with the labor laws of the flag state or the charter destination, and violators could lead to penalties. Now, most are chartering with not bareboat, but with a crew. And seafarer contracts ensure that any crew members, if applicable, have valid contracts and are properly compensated. The legal framework surrounding the employment on yachts can vary based on the nationality of the crew and the yacht's registration. Doesn't necessarily mean that the nationality of the crew matches where the yacht is registered. And then we have charter licensing agreements, and there are commercial versus private charters. Some countries require yachts that are being chartered commercially or for profit to meet certain regulations, such as having a commercial license, of course. If the yacht is being chartered privately, not for commercial gain, there may be different rules. And generally, the regulations apply when you're carrying 12 or more passengers is considered a commercial venture, definitely. So somewhat in conclusion, on taxation, VAT and taxation. Many jurisdictions impose taxes on yacht charters. Whether the tax is applicable depends on the location, the duration of the charter, and other factors. Failure to pay the required taxes can lead to legal issues. And I know Amelia had that situation where the contract may have been signed here and they were trying to decide that the voyage actually commenced here when it was actually in Europe to avoid the taxation issue. The tax residency of the yacht obviously infers that. The flag state of the yacht may impact the taxation, as some countries employ higher taxes in foreign flag yachts than domestic ones. You also, very, very important, want to make sure there's a dispute resolution clause. That means you're looking at arbitration or litigation. And it's important to have this clause in the charter agreement outlining how the dispute will be handled, whether through arbitration, mediation, or litigation. International charter agreements sometimes use arbitration to avoid lengthy and costly court battles, but we also like to see a mediation clause because mediation can often settle minor problems that may go on before you have the expenses of going to court. And the mediation and the mediator is chosen usually as a consensus between the charter and the yacht owner. Now, those are some of the legal concerns to keep in mind. It's always a good idea to consult with a maritime lawyer, as we say, when you're entering into a yacht charter agreement, especially for international charters, to ensure you're fully compliant in all those areas.
And let me ask you this, I know dispute resolution is something big that you always talk about as far as having in your terms and conditions for your general agency contract and everything like that. If you have something like that in your agency contract, should you still have dispute resolution in the individualized charter contract? Or I guess the question is, would this be between you and the charter company or between you and your client?
I'm sorry, what's the last sentence? Between you and?
You and the charter company or you and the client?
No, that's usually you and the charter company in that regard. As we mentioned before, when you're doing something with a group, though, you want to make sure that each of the individuals in the group are aware of the terms and conditions. Even if you put one page, you know where they lie, where they can access them. And then if there's a dispute, you said, well, you know, we referenced them here. You signed off that you read them or that you had the obligation to read them or they were provided to you.
Perfect.
All right. If we're good, we'll move into a little bit more with Amelia and her experiences on board. And we'll talk about river cruises.
Hello, everybody.
Why don't I move you over here?
Yeah, my name, no, I can just move here if you can see me. This is Emilia Bach, and I'm going to talk about European charters and river cruises. My experience the last 10 years, I've been cruising charters, smaller ones in Europe, in Italy and Greece, especially. So there are rules and regulations over there as well as in the USA and all over the world. Charters cruises on Europe rivers, such as the Rhine, Danube, Seine, Rhone, and Douro, which is in Portugal, France, and Austria, are subject to a mix of international European rules and regulations. The exact rules depends on the country or countries involved, because the river crosses different countries involved and the type of charters. It can be a private charter, commercial, or it can be a corporate one, and the size and the nature of the vessel. Here is a breakdown of the main rules and regulations that apply. So the general European international regulations, those rules apply across most European rivers, especially those shared by more than one country. Technical and safety standards. ES3 European standard laying down technical requirements for inland navigation vessels. Next, we're talking about the crew licensing and certification. Both masters must have an European recognized inland navigation license. Larger vessels or those carrying passengers require crew with boat master certificate, rudder certificate if using a rudder, but most of them, they do use a rudder. Passenger vessel endorsement, passenger safety and insurance must carry passenger liability insurance, and the European regulations require the 392/2009, which is a specific rule.
Again, we are talking European river cruises in this regard, so the law automatically applies.
Yeah.
Versus what we were talking about charters in the Mediterranean or
Exactly.
anywhere offshore Caribbean and so forth.
This is just specifically for the rivers.
Yeah, when you guys are also talking about river charters and all that stuff, are we talking about river charters like I want to go work with AMA Waterways and charter their ship? Or are you talking more of a private charter that is not a U.S. river cruise company?
We've done both actually, but generally it's under a operating charter organization, and you charter the yacht for that specific or the riverboat for that specific purpose. And they will normally have their own contract, but you want to look through the contract to make sure a lot of these obligations are in there. As I said, we did that before. They violated some of the terms, conditions, and some were often missing.
Wow. So basically, if you're working with a larger tour operator or river cruise company, they should include a lot of these different things, but it's up to the advisor to kind of go through the contract and make sure every piece of this is there to protect themselves also.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And then to go on for my presentation, charter specific on this consideration, like for example, if you go with a boat without a crew, bareboat, rare on the large rivers, generally they are full of people, usually only small boats. In this case, the charterer must hold valid boating licenses, no matter what, if you go with a crew or without a crew. If you are chartering a river cruise vessel, either as a private individual company, there are rules that apply as well. The license and permits, advance booking and docking permits required at the major ports, like in Budapest, Vienna, Amsterdam, Venice, of the major ports in Europe. Commercial versus private charters. The cruise operator must hold a passenger transport license, port and waterway navigation permits, must follow local port authority regulations. Each country in Europe is different, so it depends which port you're going to, you have to respect the law. Commercial with crew, most common includes full service cruises with the crew and catering. And then it is a port and docking rules as well from each country in Europe. And then final, I am talking about, for example, France waterway rules. Special permits are required for some rivers. It depends which river, and the Rhone River is due to locks and currents. It depends also the time and the conditions and the weather. In Austria, we have the big river called the Danube, and that's the environment rules are restricted in certain protected zones. Portugal has a big river called the Douro, and also here, Douro has a seasonal and weather-dependent navigation restrictions. So in Europe, it's a little bit different because each country, even though it's Europe, has a different rules and regulations from the past. So
and that's one thing too. If the client may think they're an experienced yachtsman, and it's one thing if you're going in an inland river, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to charter a yacht that's bareboat, because you're not going to hold the licenses necessary in the inland rivers in Europe. Now, if you're chartering out in say the Mediterranean or the Caribbean as a bareboat charter, you want to make sure that your client, if he says, I'm doing a bareboat charter, he holds the necessary, or she, specifications for the charter itself. And as far as crew and so forth, if they're crewing it by themselves, and that they're aware of the implications of the various laws of the countries they may be going to. But in general, with travel agents and tour companies, you're going to go with a known charter, and that's what they're going to provide. However, As Amelia may want to tell you, we've had some experiences, or one particular experience.
I had a, can I talk now?
Sure.
Yes, I had a one experience because, as I said, I've been cruising in Europe in a smaller yachts, like having like 10 to 12 guests as most, smaller luxury. And then my last experience last year, we had guests who booked it online through the website, and the pictures and everything looks beautiful, perfect. Is luxury, expensive week to spend on the in in Greece, Mediterranean. So what happened is when the guests arrived, I was the captain assistant. I am a guest relations type, and then I was also working as a captain assistant. And I had this guest coming in, and from the first day they start to complain because the size of the bedrooms were not what they were expecting. We had a little problem in the middle of the sea with the water maker. So we have the shortage of water. So we have to limit them the time of the shower, to usage of water in general. And then they were complaining about the beds, the mattresses are not that comfortable. And what you see on the pictures when you buy you book something, it's not really in reality. So my job was to try to keep all the guests happy for the whole week. And I would try to organize sunset cocktail hours, music, talking to the guests, and put them pictures on social media to entertain them and not to complain so much, because they really wanted to have a refund on the money, even though the yacht was beautiful, but the size was not what they were expecting. And the water maker problem was a big issue. 3-minute showers, nobody would like to do that. Must have to. It was a terrible experience, but I managed to make everybody happy. And the guests at the end, they said to me, if it wasn't for you, it would have been a terrible experience, but you tried and you help us to enjoy every moment anyway and forget about any issues the boat has. So I just want to let you know.
Well, also, so
conclusion.
that's what's important too. If the guest has never been on a yacht, it's important to ask them what yachting experiences they may have had before. And as we know, pictures don't often resemble reality in any situation. So we found that on cruise ships, of course, too. But more important, the camera lenses can be stretched and so forth to make the accommodations look better. You're dealing with bunks often instead of beds. And it's important that, you talk to your client or clients and say, all right, what's your experience before? And you realize this is the reality. As she's speaking, a 3-minute shower, if you're a yacht owner like I was before, that's normal. But if you're a guest, what do you mean I have to get out of this? I have to turn off the water. I have to get out of the shower. And other incidences like use of the toilets on board and what you can put in them and so forth, entirely different. So again, the experience, if they have any, if they don't, that some of these things be explained as best as possible by the travel agent or the tour company before the voyage begins. I think you had a group that actually canceled. They got there, didn't like the yacht. Is that correct?
Yes, I had a group of a family, 5 people. As soon as they came to the yacht, they said, oh, no, we're not going to go ahead. We're going to get off right now and we want the money back. I'm going to refund right now. This is not what I was expecting. And they left. But then there was a contract involved. And when the yacht in Europe, when it's booked for the week and it's paid for, there's no refunds. So these people decide they change their mind. They left the yacht. They didn't like it. There were better expectations from the pictures, and they left, but they didn't get the money back. Because I did the contract, they didn't get the refund because
Well, that's what's important also is because you know who they're coming after in that event, the travel agent, the tour company.
Right.
And they're saying, well, we're leaving, we want our money back. So they come after the travel agent. And the travel agent needs to be certain to explain that these are non-refundable. You get there, you don't like it. Well, you know, that's too bad. Unless there's a reasonable difference between
Exactly.
what is shown in the pictures and what's explained in the brochure or online um, from the reality. And then if there's obviously a difference in that, there's a really very good reason that the travel agent now through the contract they may have with the yacht provider can call for arbitration, mediation, whatever. If it's small, sometimes mediation, but you've got to be careful with that because very big expectations and yachts vary so much depending on length, the type of accommodations, and what they can do.
That makes sense because actually one of the questions that came in is like if somebody does cancel, if a client cancels last minute and the yacht owner refuses the refund, what legal options do advisors or clients really have? And that makes sense that basically it depends on what the reason is, why it's being canceled. Maybe you as the travel advisor could be an advocate for your client if it is a reasonable reason and all that stuff. And I mean, unfortunately, travel advisors have to protect themselves too, and that's kind of where this comes into play is like what level of protection is there for travel advisors if this is the case, because that's why a lot of travel advisors don't book Airbnb or VRBO and all that, because we don't know what that property looks like. We don't have connection with the owner most of the times and stuff like that. And if they show up and it's not what it was expected, what is the recourse from that point forward?
Well, what's also good is to advise the travel advisor should advise the client, in other words, to make sure they take pictures, especially if they think there's going to be an issue. You want to take pictures of the bunks, the shower, the toilet accommodations, whatever they've got on board. And it may even be during the voyage if something malfunctions. You want to take a picture of that. Now you've got some proof that you can rely on when you go back and show the travel agent, show the tour company, listen, this is not what was promised. And then they become take over for you to some degree, or your travel agent says, okay, here's what we were told. Here are the pictures from my client. This is what the reality was. Now you owe us some money back.
Perfect. Now, I know we talked a lot about EU charters and kind of what's going on over in the EU and whatnot. For the average travel advisor getting into this world, a lot of people, truthfully, kind of get a client and they're like, I have a client that wants to go to Alaska on a yacht, go to the BVI on a yacht, go to Croatia on a yacht. And we kind of just lean into our suppliers in the hopes that they're going to give us all the right information that's required. Is there a substantial difference if I just booked a whole yacht charter in Croatia and we had a great time and I had a contract built with them and everything, and now that same family next year wants to do the same similar experience in the BVI, would most of the regulations that I need to look for as a travel advisor be similar?
Just not necessarily.
Croatia, not necessarily. From Croatian to a different country is different. Depends on where the cruise goes to. It depends on the itinerary.
And there are also certain groups of regulations, such as Caribbean charters, that they have to rely on. And you can look at those. What they provide is maybe more specific or less than a Mediterranean yacht charter. So it's not going to be the same. And you really need to look at it from an all new perspective. A different kind of crew. Do they understand the language, which is another issue? Does the crew have any kind of medical training if there's an issue? Has the captain had medical training? What do they do if they're offshore? Do they have good radio equipment if they need to call in someone to? And then your passenger too, your client. You need to discuss with them if they have medical issues, because you're on a yacht, you're not on a cruise ship. And there's only certain limited treatment that could be available or should be. But sometimes, as you may well know, the captain, no one has much medical experience. Oh, well, what are we going to do? Or their answer is, well, you should have told us you had a problem before we sailed. And that's their excuse to some degree. But if the client has a medical issue, it's often nice to have a doctor write up a report and turn that in and say, this is what the client needs to watch out for. You could also present that to the yacht charter saying, can you accommodate this scenario, this situation?
Yeah,
And I know you had a client once with a wheelchair. They couldn't even get off the yacht.
yeah,
Wow.
yes. With the wheelchair, they cannot get off the yacht. It was a very big issue, problem, but we try to accommodate. We call the local guards. They come like with a taxi boat. They come and pick him up, and they took it to shore. If there is a problem like that, in Europe we also have a helicopter emergency room. Anything happens on the water, the helicopter will come and pick up the emergency issue with whatever customer or guest that we have. I see that happening a lot. So, but everything has to be on the contract before anybody goes to a 1 week charter in a rivers or anywhere else. The medical.
Really, your captain should have some kind of basic medical training.
Yeah, the captain has a basic, definitely, and me as an assistant, I do have a training for CPR or anything happens, I was supposed to help.
It's similar also in say scuba diving and so forth.
Yeah.
You know, there are different degrees, and if you're going to take people down on a dive, you have to be far more informed of medical conditions and how to do it and what to proceed.
Yes.
Because now you're looking in yachting, you're looking also as somewhat of it's an adventure. It's, oh, I'm getting on my cruise ship and I don't have to worry about anything. That's not necessarily the same thing.
Right. Right.
Makes sense. And I would say too, like, I know we've talked a lot about what travel advisors should be looking for and what's included in the contract and all of that. From you guys' experience, is there flexibility in the contract process where if I read the contract and I see that I don't love what is included here, or I want to add something else to protect myself or the safety of my guests or something like that, are yacht charter companies and larger companies and stuff like that open to that kind of flexibility?
Well, I found on the larger ones, yes, they are. I came up with a whole list of suggestions for the client to say, let's look at this, and this could mean addendum to the contract.
Yes.
So an addendum part A, this is what we need. And so their contract may be sufficient for one purpose, but you need further, you need jurisdiction and things like this that aren't mentioned. So you call it an addendum part A, or whatever that can be added to the contract.
If I have a personally a physical problem and I'm going to a cruise, I would love to go, I'm going to add an addendum about my specific situation that I'm going through to protect myself. Like, you know, if I'm having a leg operation, I can walk very well, but I still want to go on the cruise at that time, I have to put an addendum, and we are legally allowed to do that.
Perfect. And is there, from your legal perspective, is there maybe one thing, just kind of wrapping up here a little bit, is there one thing that you would say as travel advisors are reading through that yacht charter contract that might stand out as a possible red flag that they might want to maybe reconsider or maybe take to their attorney at that point? Because again, a lot of travel advisors aren't working with a maritime attorney. They are working with their suppliers and trusting that their suppliers also have their best interests. So if they were just flipping through that contract and one thing stood out, what might be a red flag?
Well, Steve, I think what we provided to you just recently also is a list of the issues that they should look at when they're looking at the contract. And most of those, if you look at that on the list and you start comparing those, you'll see, are they in the contract? Are they not in the contract? If so, why not? And is the charter company amenable to doing an addendum part A or including that? There may be some issues where, you know, choice of law, they may not be willing to bend. If it's a yacht cruise, let's just say down the Danube, they may want to use German law, which may apply, and they're not going to change it. So you can try. And certainly if there's nothing specified, then you want to specify it in there.
Okay, that totally makes sense.
Yes,
so,
I agree. I totally agree.
Perfect. And you guys being in Fort Lauderdale, Florida jurisdiction, all that, should advisors around the country, like, are you a resource as a maritime styled attorney, even being in the travel industry, or what do you like? What would you suggest for anybody looking to partner with an attorney right now?
Well, there are under, let's just say the Florida bar, there's a maritime section. So you would go into the Florida bar, look for maritime or admiralty attorneys. They switch to both designations. I've got a lot of experience in that area, but I'm not holding myself out as an admiralty attorney. I mean, I do ocean law and we do a lot of this. But yes, if you get a serious issue, then you should look for someone who is admiralty or maritime specified attorney.
Mhm.
Okay, Lawrence, I know you have your entire legal document template package and everything too. Is there coverage for those that want to work with yacht charters and ship charters and all of that? Are there certain pieces in the template package that would also include coverage for the travel advisor?
Well, yes, also the group package is also very necessary to take a look at that. And then you take the group package and you would look at the new terms and conditions we sent over to make sure those are also included in the group package. You've also got to look at the type of charter. I mean, these days you have people that are wanting to do a LGBTQ charter, and is that allowed in certain countries? Just dislike that, don't want to look at that. There are new charters, so everybody wants to be nude on board and so forth and like that. So you want to make sure that also that you're not held liable for any actions by the crew. And those, of course, are in our group charter agreement in the hotels. They may not really run a full background check on some of their employees, and things have happened. You don't want them coming back after you. So that's in the agency agreement as well.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. So anybody who's interested, you can visit travellegaltemplates.com. Lawrence does have the entire package material right over there where you can actually get everything very customizable. You can actually go in and personalize it right to your agency. Like you was mentioning, a group contract, that's actually a great resource. What you can do is take the verbiage that he already provided, add in your yacht charter package contract from your supplier, and send that to your clients to be able to also get their eyes on the yacht charter contract, because most of the times the individual advisor is the one signing the yacht charter contract. And Lawrence, maybe you could touch on that really quickly as well, is for liability with a charter, is it usually the client signing the charter contract, or is it usually the advisor acting as the intermediary signing the charter contract?
Well, I've seen both, actually. If the agency is involved, they may sign the charter agreement, and then what they should do is have the client make sure they're aware of the charter agreement. But they want to look it over first before they even sign that. And then they want to consult with the client saying this. Are you aware of that? And again, as I say, experience is very important. If they've never been on a yacht before or overnighted on a yacht, you want to make sure they have they realize that it's going to be a lot different. It may be a lot of fun, but the pictures showing, we're sitting in the beautiful sun, sailing along the Mediterranean and so forth. That's really nice, but the reality may be somewhat different. Yachts are handled differently in storms and can be quite bumpy, and situations would apply.
Perfect. No, it's excellent. Well, I appreciate both of you guys taking your time out today and kind of sharing the legal implications that travel advisors have when they are moving into the charter market. I know chartering yachts, chartering cruise ships, whatever it is that you're chartering, there is such an enormous amount of opportunity, but there's also an enormous amount of liability that comes with that too. So I do think for anybody looking to get into that market, definitely feel free to reach out to Laurence Gore. You can reach him by going to goreinternationallaw@gmail.com or goreinternationallaw.com. And feel free to send your request that way. He's got a great retainer package for anybody who's looking for more legal information or just to kind of button up your contracts and kind of get everything taken care of. Lawrence, do you have maybe one or two, or Amelia, do you have one or two last words to say to kind of wrap things up?
Amelia, did you have?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for everybody. And if you have any questions, anything, just email me at goreinternationallaw.com. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
We are also, both of us, especially, I mean, I've had a number of yachts, so it's something you kind of learn by experience, and I've taken a number of courses, so I understand that fairly well. From navigation and engine room mechanics and things. Doesn't mean I'm perfect at it, but I do have a good understanding on it.
Amazing.
Don't call me to fix your yacht. Okay.
Yeah, we don't do mechanical stuff. No.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys very much, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
All right.
Thank you so
Steve.
much.